Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Talks at Google with Sri M. I'm Prasad Setty. I'm a vice president in our people operations organization here at Google. I lead our people analytics, compensation, and benefits teams. We are here today to talk with Sri M, who's no stranger to Google and perhaps not to many of you. But since this is going to be on YouTube, I'm going to read out a short introduction as well. Sri M is a spiritual guide, author, a social reformer, and educationist. His transformational journey from a young boy born in a Muslim family to being a living yogi is a fascinating story symbolized by single-minded discipline and dedication. At 19, he embarked on a journey to the Himalayas, seeking a true master he found in the form of Maheshwarnath Babaji. After traveling extensively through the Himalayas with his teacher for a few years, his teacher encouraged him to return to the plains to start a family life and prepare for his life's mission. Over the years, his efforts as a social reformer and educationist have given rise to many initiatives that include Satsang Vidyalaya, Satsang Rural School, People Grove School, Satsang Swasthya Kendra, and Manav Ekta Mission. He completed a Walk of Hope in 2015-2016, a 15-month-long journey from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, spanning 7,500 kilometers across 11 states in India for peace, harmony, and tolerance. He also did another Walk of Hope in Europe earlier this year in 2017. Conversant with the teachings of most major religions, Sri M says, go to the core. Theories are of no use. His message seeks to transcend the outer shell of all religions by exploring their mystical core to nurture the innate goodness in every human being. He has authored several books, including his memoir, Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master, a yogi's autobiography, and the journey continues. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Sri M. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
I thought I'd start off initially with the question about just your early years and your journey to the Himalayas. Most of us are brought up thinking about what a standard model of success looks like. We all need to study, go to college, go get a job, perhaps at a Google, right? That is what we are all taught to do, but you took a very different path. You decided that you would go after the Himalayas, which is not something that most people think of. Tell us about that. What was that thought process like for you, and what made you embark on that journey?
And it's like this, when something is so serious and you want to do it, then you do it no matter what the consequences. And in my case, you can imagine, even in India, if you are born in a Hindu family, and then you decide at the age of 19 to leave your college and go to the Himalayas, it's a shock, even if you were born in and in my case, being born in a Muslim family, to say that at the age of 19 you stop your college and go to the Himalayas, of all places, it is quite a tough thing to take up. So I did the shortcut in this matter, which is I didn't inform anybody, I quietly disappeared. So I went to the Himalayas. Now this is not just a sudden thought that came when I was 19. It's been working on my mind for many years, because at the age of 9, how much time do we have?
We have an hour today, and so I have a few questions, and then shortly after that, we'll turn it over to the audience as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll try to keep it short.
Sure.
At the age of 9, I met an extraordinary individual in the backyard of our house in Trivandrum. I was born in Kerala, in the southern part. The capital of Kerala is Trivandrum, the coastal side. So I met this wonderful person, and he touched me once on my head. But you can say he laid his hands on my head. And after that, he disappeared. I mean, he went away. I'm not saying disappear like he came and went poof. No, he went away. And then that, I think, did a lot of things to my mind. I started thinking differently. When others would be playing, I would be sitting quietly and looking at the sky. In fact, my parents started wondering if there was something going wrong with me. I had to go to a psychiatrist. I was taken there. So don't believe a word of what I'm saying. I might have gone bananas, okay? I was taken to a psychiatrist, and after 5 minutes, the psychiatrist said to my people who had brought me there, my uncle and so on, can you go out, step out for a while? I need to have a private chat. This was when I was 14 or 15. I stepped out, and then the psychiatrist said, I know this is all nonsense, but can we discuss the Upanishads? So, it was interesting. I had a long relationship with him later on. Anyway, then it was, things were changing in my mind. I was wondering if, as you said, there's only one world. You study, you get your job, you get married, you have children, you die, and you go off. Or is there something other than that? Is there something that is offbeat? You know how the flower people and the hippies were spawned in the United States because they were looking for something alternate, right? But it ended up in drugs, of course. But there is, of course, the human mind seeking for something different. I think all minds sometimes seek. But they're so bogged down by day-to-day life and the practicalities of living that there is no time, there is no energy to do this. In my case, I decided, if there is something like that, which is alternate, I need to go at it whole hog, let's put it that way.
Once you made the decision, how did you know what to do? How did you know how to get to the Himalayas?
Right. So then, from that age of, let's say, 12, 13, I started reading books on the yogis and the philosophy and things like that. I met several people who were in the locality who were supposed to be spiritually evolved. And then in most books I encountered one thing, which is that high up in the Himalayas, there are these great yogis. Okay? And also I had this fascination for the snow-capped mountains. In the south of India, there are no snow-capped mountains.
Sure.
So when I saw clouds, I used to imagine that they were like mountains. If you ask me why, it's something to do with what is already in my consciousness. Maybe from the past.
Sure.
So I decided I will go to the Himalayas. There is no Google then, no maps, no nothing you could do, no search engines. So I had to rely on the old railway guides. You need to check how to get there. So I was in a pretty affluent family, so there was my pocket money was enough to take me up there. In fact, that was my father's regret, that instead of taking over the family business, I chose to run away somewhere. Anyway, so I finally, after a great deal of traveling, I reached Badrinath in the Himalayas. And there I met under, we can't explain the entire circumstances here. It's there in my book, the autobiography, which is Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master. It's already there on Amazon. Anybody can go in and take it. So I met the same person who I had met when I was a 9-year-old boy. And the way he greeted me was interesting. As soon as he saw me, and I saw him, I said, oh, this is the person. He said, oh, you wandered around and come back to me. So, in Hindi. He said, "Ghum phir ke phir hamare paas aa gaye." So I told him, look, Babaji, I'm not going to leave you. I want to be with you forever. He smiled and he said, we'll think about it. So this is how my life started. And I spent 2.5 full years with him, wandering, going wherever he went, like a dog following its master. Not the modern dogs, masters follow the dog, you see. But yeah. So I spend, and whatever I have here, whatever has been understood here as well as here, I think both are important, the heart and the brain,
Right.
is from those 2.5 to 3 years of being with this great person, studying, more than actually studying, the feeling of it.
Yeah. Your book describes many wonderful stories and your journeys with your master. How would you synthesize and capture the learnings from those 2.5 years? Like, what stands out for you?
It's difficult to put it all in a nutshell, but if you try hard, there are a few important things that emerge from all the data that I have and all the experiences that I have. And that is, first, a human being should think of himself as part of this entire universe and not a separate, isolated thing. This is a vast network.
Yeah.
And from our point of view, the consciousness is not confined to one center. It's an all-pervading consciousness. It acts from different centers, from you, from me, but these are only different points from where it manifests. It's actually one, let's say, global consciousness. Global does not mean global business. Global means like every living being in this universe has a place.
Sure.
And it's as important as anything else.
Sure.
A human being has the advantage of having the capacity to reflect and understand this, which some animals may not have.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that they're not part of this structure. So this is the first thing that I learned. The second was that there are different points of view and different ways people think due to differences in their mental makeup, the way they live, and so on. Therefore, it's dangerous to say that I'm always right and somebody else is wrong. Even when you study the truth, let's say, meaning even if you study the concept which many people call God or the truth, whatever you want to say, if it is infinite, if we think it is, if it is infinite, then there must be infinite ways of reaching there. There can't be one. See, all the problems, even in this world, start when we say there is only one way.
Sure.
Even in a small setup like your own home, I have a wife, I'm a married man, I'm not a monk. If I insist that I'm always right and my wife is wrong, how do you live this? Because it's a fact that she may be right many times. So I also learned, the second point, to look at things from different angles and say, hey, wait a minute, there are different ways of looking at it. You don't become so caught up in what you are saying is right. Sure. There may be different ways of looking. And the third is a healthy concern for all living beings. Now, living beings also includes trees and plants and mountains. In some way, they're all living. We like to think that only those things are living which can move. The tree doesn't move, but it lives. So this is like the first point which I said, that we are part of this whole. W-H-O-L-E whole, not the H-O-L-E whole. We are part of this whole. And we have a place in this system, of course. And the less selfish we become, the better we merge with this system. And fourth, since you asked for points,
sure.
You can't put them into points, but
sure.
Still, the fourth being that there are ways and means to get in touch with the essence of your being. It's beyond all religions and doctrines and philosophies. There is a way. There are ways of getting in touch with the core of your consciousness. Once you get in touch with the core of your consciousness, or even begin to see this possibility, then you can no longer be the same person. You may dress the same, but you can't be the same person. You see everything reflected as one.
Sure. So talking about those practices then, is that where things like meditation, mindfulness, etc. come into play? And how would you distinguish, are they the same things when you think about mindfulness, when you think about meditation? Are they the same? Are they different concepts? Can you share a little more about the practices themselves?
When I say practice, it need not necessarily mean a technique. Techniques are there, of course, they're important. However, when I say practice, it means it starts with a mindset first. When we say we want to find out, then it begins with a mindset which says, let me explore this with no prejudice whatsoever.
Right, right.
Let
Keep
me
an
not-
open mind. Yes.
Keep an open mind.
Yeah.
So that is the first step. There are two kinds of people generally. There are many kinds of people, but you can divide them into those who say, well, I am very scientific, I am very materialistic, I don't believe. Now, what I'm saying is that if you start with an inquiry saying, I don't believe, then you cannot inquire.
Right.
So that is the starting point.
Right.
At least suspend your judgment and say, let me find out.
Yeah.
There's the other set, which is so deeply religious, and it doesn't believe in anything that is material and physical and scientific. This is another extreme.
Sure.
So we have to find a middle point somewhere. If you do that, then it's possible to slowly explore. This mindset has to develop first. Then, if you do this, you will discover also that the entire journey starts, the first starting point of this spiritual journey is a quiet mind. You know, our mind is always distracted.
Right.
And
we keep inventing new things.
We keep inventing new things. It's okay to invent physically new things, but we keep inventing new ideas, which sometimes may be quite not conducive to human welfare also, many a time.
Sure.
So, also, you will notice that we can't sit with our mind calm even for a minute, it's jumping around.
Yeah.
So, the starting point, if you need to really explore the core of your consciousness, is a quiet mind. So therefore, when it comes to technique, we need to figure out some method by which you can still your mind and make it quiet. The mind can never become thoughtless. It's quite a contradiction to say that I have a thoughtless mind. If you have a thoughtless mind, you won't even know who you are, where you are. I can say calm mind, quiet mind, mind which is positive, mind which is not agitated all the time, mind that is not always in conflict and contradictions. Such a mind. Now for that is the starting point. Without that you can't explore this vast thing called consciousness.
Right.
So, first we understand this theoretically as we discussed just now. Then we say, are there ways by which at least you can start quietening your mind? The ultimate quietness of mind comes when you touch this, wherever we are aiming at. But you have to start somewhere. So you should have some method by which every day, at least for 10 or 15 minutes, you can quieten your mind. Sit quietly. There are a couple of techniques, many techniques actually, depends on the person. Some people get very quiet when they just sit and pray. That's fine. There are others who don't believe in that, so they have to find other ways of quietening the mind. If you have none of these, like yoga is one way of quietening the mind, which is pranayama, watching the breath. Working with the breath is a beautiful way of quietening the mind. Okay, if you don't want any of these things, are you interested in something like music, for instance? So can we sit for 10, 15 minutes, just listen to beautiful music? Music which calms you down. There are all kinds of music. There is some music, the moment you listen, you start moving. That's okay for a certain circumstance, but not here.
Sure.
So here you need like good classical music. I love myself. I like Beethoven, symphonies. So, or Brahms. There are many, even in the West. It's not as if there's only in India.
Sure.
So, if you get interested in, for instance, music, and spend half an hour, 1 hour completely absorbed in it, when you're fully absorbed in it, if you quietly reflect, you'll see that your mind has become calm. There is no distraction out there. Distraction happens when I'm not interested and I'm forcing my mind to get into it. This is where distraction comes. When I'm really absorbed, there is no distraction. Which means every human being has a potential to remain undistracted,
Right.
which is not properly tapped.
How do you develop that practice? Many people in the audience and those who are listening perhaps have young kids, and kids nowadays are growing up with a lot of technology that just keeps them occupied, right? But it also leads to distractions. Any thoughts on how do you cultivate this practice and this kind of thinking even at a young age?
Okay. Now, children, especially little kids, more than teaching them, we have to set an example to them. You know, if I live a kind of life and I teach them, hey, be calm, it doesn't work because they're very intelligent. They know exactly where you stand. So when you have children, if you lead a life which is conducive to quietness, then they will start imitating you. Okay. The other thing is, children are full of energy. They want to do many things. I'll give you an example. There are some kids who love to paint and draw. For them, the wall in the bedroom or the sitting room is a canvas. They start drawing on it, scribbling on it. And what is the first reaction we have? Hey, don't do it, don't do it. You're actually killing a genius out there. So what is the solution? We can't get canvases and hang them everywhere. So the other day, there was this problem actually, and I advised the parents, can you leave one wall for the kid? Anytime you want to draw, use this wall. Don't say don't draw, don't stop. So we need to understand the child first, and very often we should know that children are sometimes wiser than grown-ups. We like to think because we have a lot of experience, we know everything. But sometimes child can teach us many things. So if there is this understanding between this child and the parents, then the child also is very happy with this because he sees the parents as not somebody who is trying to impose things on them. People who are interacting.
Sure.
So these are some of the things that we can follow.
Yeah.
So if they find you getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth and sitting down quietly, they would ask curiously, what's happening?
Right.
Don't tell them, you sit down.
Yeah. You got a role model for them.
You need to.
Role model for them. Going back to the Himalayas, you spent 2.5 years. As you mentioned, when you met your master, your initial thought was, I'm going to stay with you. But then after 2.5 years, you came back down south. Tell us about that decision and how you made that.
There is a very nice description in the autobiography, but I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Since after 2.5 years, or 3 years, roughly almost 3 years, when I was mostly with my master, Maheshwarnath Babaji, walking everywhere in the Himalayas, because he was a man who wouldn't use any kind of transport. He always walked. Maybe later on the walk of hope originated there from my mind. So one day he dropped a bombshell. I had forgotten everything about my home and everything and I was quite happy actually, really very happy. Suddenly one day he said to me, now it's time for you to go back. Now, this was something I did not expect. So it's time for you to go back. I said, Babaji, where would I go back? Because there is no place to go back. I have burnt my bridges. There's nothing left. I'm here, I'm happy. So he said to me, I thought I was working on you all these years to make your mind, to expand your mind. Looks like your mind is narrowed down. You're thinking only about yourself and the Himalayas. What about the wide world? So I said, but still I can work from here. He said, no, you cannot work from here. You go back. And plus, you have a special role to play. I trained you not for, I didn't want to waste my time with you. And you have a special role to play. Go back, be normal. I mean, you can't be normal, but pretend to be normal. I mean, be, like wear ordinary clothes.
Sure.
Just stay. And then later on, when you feel like it, you might probably find somebody and lead a married life and have kids. He said, most of the people who come to you are not monks. The people who lead a life in this world. So you are in no position to give them any advice if you don't know what it is all about. So go back, lead a normal life, work for your living. We'll see if you find somebody, we'll see how it works. So very reluctantly I left. And not only that, after leaving home, I had not informed my mother, so nobody knew where I was. In fact, my parents thought that I died. And I was the only son in the family. In India, it's very important, son. Only son and the oldest of the family. So they were completely, their hearts were broken in a way. So Babaji told me, you are not going back like this as you are now. Because those days, I never used to cut. I had very thick growth in my head, the hair. So like Babaji, I also used to tie it up. It was about this high. And I used to have a Rudraksha bead on my neck. And I used to wear just a white piece of cloth and a sleeveless. And since Babaji belonged to the Nath tradition, we are all supposed to wear rings. So I had rings in my ears. So Babaji said, you are not going like this in front of your mother. Already she has a problem and she might probably get a heart attack straight. So he sent me to Delhi, and he had a disciple who lived there, who was a businessman. And he had instructed him to go take me to the tailor, get me a pair of pants and shit. They were so kind. So when people talk of mindfulness, I always say mindfulness is not just sitting down and looking at your mind. Mindfulness is minding other people, how they feel. So he said, then he also said, go to the barber and get a decent haircut. I was about to ask him, what about you? Had a decent haircut and go back And then he said, remove your earrings. I was very unhappy because I was so fond of them. Anyway, they were copper, so I got them out. Now what? He said, put it into the Ganga, let it go.
What was it like when you came back and met your family after all those years?
They thought that I died. In fact, somebody told me that they saw an ad in the paper, in the Indian Express, saying, please let us know if you find this guy. So my mother was shaken, and when she saw me, I don't think she could say anything. She just hugged me and cried. There was nothing she could say. And my father was a little more controlled kind of person. So he just said, so how are you? Was everything okay? I said, everything okay. Are you going back or you'll be staying here? I said, I'm staying here. Okay. He said, fine. So it was like that. I don't know later what they talked among themselves. I have no idea. So this is how it happened. So I went back, and just as Babaji instructed, I started finding work here and there, doing I worked as a journalist for some time. I did many things. Worked for NGOs. I did quite a lot. Because I was sure I couldn't do the business which he was doing.
Sure.
He was into construction. And construction is one of the most corrupt businesses possible. And I just couldn't fit into it. So I didn't do that. I was unhappy, but it's okay. I mean, so this is how it was. Then I met this girl who I got married to. We have a 9-year difference. And we started our life. I'm here now.
Yes, very nice. I have a couple more questions and then we'll turn it over to the audience. I wanted to shift our attention to the Walk of Hope itself. And how did you get that idea? What exactly were you trying to accomplish and how do you characterize it? You have done a couple of them, one in India, one in Europe. So tell us about that.
The Walk of Hope in India is basically, there is always this, in India, there's always this difference of religion, caste, creed going on. Difficult to say at one time it's less or more, but it's there.
Sure.
So I was in a unique position to go and tell people that this is not required. You don't have to fight because you, in the name of religion, in the name of, my idea was, if you want, you can stay in peace and still accomplish what you have to do. In fact, you can accomplish things better if you can bring about some peace. You may have differences of opinion, but everybody has different ways of thought. You can still live together. You can't become the same, but you can be different and yet be one.
Sure.
Because we are humanity, after all. So I thought the best way to talk about this would be to take a walk. From ancient times, many people have walked whenever they wanted to do something important. Many people ask me in this jet age, why are you walking? I said, in this jet age, I wish everybody walked at least for 20 minutes every day. I was walking for over 1 year and 4 months, and there were many people walking with me. There are some people here who walk with me. So it was a unique experience. One, I was sending the message that we are human beings. Let's drop the differences and live together. Two, I was trying to convey this, that there is no high or low. You might be economically poor, somebody may be very rich, but when it comes to grief and difficulties and problems, it's common to all. And the same way, joys are common to all. Everybody has some kind of joy. These are things which are not different. Just because you're Thomas or you're Ayub or Ranganath, you still have your sorrows, you still have your joys, you're not different. So this was one of the reasons why I walked, and walking makes a lot of difference. You actually are with the people. It's like literally when you say down to earth. When you walk, you're down to earth, really, touching your feet to the earth. You're not flying. So I think it did make a good impact because we walked from village to village, city to city, met all kinds of people. Not only could we sow some seeds of harmony, we also learned a lot. Not only did we learn from the villagers and people we met, we also learned among ourselves in the group that we were how minds worked. It's easy to stay away and pretend to be nice, but when you're together, you're not always nice. See? So all these things are great lessons to be learned. So I think, well, we have sowed the seeds, but I don't think you can expect a big tree to grow after 5 days or 2 years. It takes time. Now we need to work on this. So having seen this, some friends from abroad had come and walked with us. Like somebody came from Germany, somebody. So they organized a talk in Berlin. So we had a walk in Berlin City for a day. Then in Netherlands, in Hague, which is the International Court of Justice, so they organized a very big walk. It was only for a day, but there were over 1,500 people walking. And they're saying every year we need to repeat this walk. And there are all kinds of people. There were immigrants, there were people from there, the Dutch, and so on. So I think the movement is slowly catching up. People are beginning to see me as a man who walks. You know, when I was young, I used to read comic books. Phantom was called the ghost who walks. It's like a man who walks.
One last question, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. I'm curious, like whether it's the Himalayas, whether it's the Walk of Hope itself, like just about like even the mundane things. How did you prepare for something that is so elaborate, so strenuous on the body? Even things like food, right? Like we can't go 50 feet anywhere at Google without running into food. Like, but when you're taking on journeys like this, like what was your process?
I'm sorry, I'm not looking that side. See, if you ask me, I really don't know. I don't know how the whole thing happened. I really don't know. It just happened. I think we were very sincere about it. There were no vested interests anywhere. So it just, from day one, we did face some problems here and there, but it worked out. And we very carefully kept out big corporate institutions from funding us. Especially the liquor lobby. Because that means we would have to take their banners.
Sure.
We didn't want any banners except a Walk of Hope.
Yeah.
So, but I think there were about a handful of people who organized it. They did commit mistakes, no question. But they were deep down quite sincere about doing these things. So it worked out quite well. And I used to have review meetings every now and then and see how things were going, and if there was something wrong, we tried to correct it. And because we knew that you can't solve all the problems before we start.
Sure.
It's a completely unique experience. In fact, many political leaders came and asked me, how did you manage this? Even with our party in tow, we are not able to do this. How do you do this? I said, I don't know. Why not? If you don't know, you should be sincere enough to say you don't know.
Right.
The problems in the world are because everybody knows. Nobody doesn't know.
Very cool. Questions from the audience. We have a mic out here. So we do have a roving mic, and we're now ready for any audience questions. Anyone? Yes, Sudha?
I think you had a live master to guide you in your path. And we are very lucky this day and age, like YouTube brings us, like once you get interested in a topic, all that you have to do is like just starting watch one or two, keeps coming and coming. So that way we are very, very fortunate in getting the information, whether it is Upanishads or whatever, as you said, infinite paths are there. So whatever path appeals to the individual, we are able to get more information on, learning the techniques to seek the truth, however we think aligns with us. My main question is, because I consider, it's again another label, but a seeker or whatever. My question is it possible to realize your true nature as consciousness without having experience like you had with the live master? And assuming it's possible, then I have a secondary question that even assume you did have direct experience of your true nature, how does one integrate it in everyday life in these modern times?
Yeah. You might read about some extraordinary experiences in, what's her name? Sudha. Experiences in my book. However, I think in my case, that was a special kind of training required so that when I go out into the wide world, I can deal with people in different ways. I don't think everybody needs to go through all that, if you don't go through all that, it doesn't mean you're any less spiritually evolved or anything of that kind, because there are many ways of doing it. I did have a live master, yes, I agree with you. Many people may not have, actually, it's good to have a wrong live master than no master at all. I mean, you might end up after many years in a mess. So it's better that you do it yourself in many ways. So my suggestion in this matter is that there is literature available. Go through it and then see what is your kind of approach. Suppose somebody says, oh, you should leave everything and then always sing bhajans. It's not your cup of tea. You can't do that. Somebody else may be. Okay? It's not wrong or right. I'm just saying it's not your approach. So take time to look and figure out what would be your approach to this. Especially if you're a thinking human being, you would be more interested in a path where there is thought process involved, where you're trying to figure out where are we going, where have we started, why are we here, and so on. If the journey starts, then when required, this is my experience, the help on this path would come from somewhere. It may not be one person, it may be many people, but it would come somehow. Because that is the law of this particular journey, that when you need, you will get help from somewhere. Provided you are sincere about it, that we are sincere about it. So that's one part of the question you asked me. In fact, without going to the Himalayas, you can do it at your home. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. Well, you can go to the Himalayas sometimes. You don't have to live there for 2 years or 3 years. It's not required. Your own little bedroom can be converted into the Himalayas, if you want to. The second part of your question, if I got it right, with the challenges of day-to-day existence, yeah, how can we do this? I think in the beginning it's not easy, but you learn to come to terms with it, because you know that you can't discard it altogether. So you try to do things which are more conducive to your spiritual progress also, and drop things which you think not required. Not drop everything. And then as you go along in life, you'll need to meet your challenges individually and try to sort them out. Now, in this process, what would help probably is to read the biographical touches, descriptions, auto or non-auto biographies, and see how these people handled it. You don't have to imitate anybody, but you can get information. And then see how it's possible to tackle it. And if you need some kind of advice from, you'll wonder where to get it, search around. You'll find, if you want my email, you can write to me. There's no problem. I can do my best.
Thank you. Next question? Yes.
Sir, I have a question about meditation and mantras. With Maheshwarnath Babaji, you have gone through Vedas and the meanings of Vedas and few other stuff. I was like every Hindu and also Muslims and Christians, they pray to God by chanting mantras every day, like a 15 minutes prayer. My question is, how useful it is in a person's spiritual journey compared to meditation, sitting there, sitting in meditation for hours or an hour. So how does this help, like chanting prayers versus meditation?
This again is a very big question, but let me tell you that chanting of a mantra can be conducive to calming the mind, and meditation is calming the mind, at least to start with. Therefore, the mantras may be useful in whichever language they are. You can even have an English mantra, doesn't matter. However, some of these ancient mantras have a sound. They are not only words, but there are some sounds built into them, so that when you chant them, it brings about a certain change in consciousness. So, therefore, it's important. Like, I'll give you an example. From 1,000 years or so, the Gayatri mantra has been chanted in India. When a child is small, they're given the Gayatri mantra. Unfortunately, I think this was an aberration that came in later. Only a certain section got it. But I think it is an aberration. I think anyone who needs to lead a good life should be chanting the Gayatri. It's a good. Now, the meaning of the mantra is one thing. It simply says, if you leave the beginning and come to the last part, which gives the pith, the meaning of the mantra, Dhiyo yona prachodayat, means, may my understanding be stimulated. That's what you're asking for. You're not asking for anything else. May my understanding be stimulated. See? So the meaning is very profound and deep. Plus, the sound of the mantra itself has a certain vibration, which is effective because it starts with Om. Now, Om is another sound. Now, please don't classify Om as belonging to this religion or that religion. It's a sound. It so happened that it was written in Sanskrit in ancient times because in India, a lot of people were seriously interested in exploring the other realms and the spirit. So it developed well there. That's the only reason why it's in Sanskrit. Om is a sound. So you can chant just Om and listen to it carefully. That itself brings about a certain change. And do not draw a dividing line between meditation and chanting because they overlap each other. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot meditate without chanting. This is also possible. Now, to give you a typical case, Ramana Maharshi did not chant any mantra. He only meditated. So it depends on the person and what kind of path you're following. However, generally I would say it's nice to listen to hymns, to sing songs, to chant mantras. Okay?
And another follow-up question. Is it Om or Aum?
Now here, some people exaggerate too much on this, and if you ask them to chant Om, they'll go on for half a minute. It's Om. Of course, Om is made of A, U and Ma. Okay, agreed. But you don't have to keep on shouting as if somebody is hurting you. You just say, you start with A and then immediately shift on to U and then come to Ma. So it's Om. And since you asked this question, the most important part of the mantra, which can bring about internal change, especially in your energy centers, is the last part of Om, which is Ma. Not Ma, but M. M is Ma, right? The letter is M, Ma, not this M. So, when you chant Om, you say Om. That is a very effective vibration to bring about change in your energy systems inside you. In fact, it's the most natural sound. We all know that. You go to any hospital where people are convalescing. The most common sound you hear is Even when you say it's S, it's it doesn't have a language, right? So, this sound is a very important part of our inner suiting of the mind in the body. So, why I'm saying this is, some people refuse to chant, oh, this is from the Hindu script. It's a sound. This is like, I had a big argument recently, not argument, sorry, I don't have argument. It was a discussion with a person who decided that those who are in India, who are Muslims, should not do Surya Namaskara. Now, Surya Namaskara is a yogic practice. His theory was, quite a well-known man, he comes and keeps talking about. His theory was that you are not supposed to bow down to anyone other than the Supreme God, what you call him, whatever you want to call. So therefore, when you bow down, Surya Namaskara implies you are bowing down to Surya, the sun. So we can't do this. You are not supposed to do this. I said, listen. Actually, after he had talked, the TV people came to me and said, please have a dialogue with this guy. So I said, okay. So I said, okay, how many people do Surya Namaskara in the open? Most people do inside. Where is the sun here? They are exercises, the yogic exercises. You don't have to bow down to the sun if you don't want. It will be nice to bow down to the sun, because without sun the whole earth will collapse. There will be no life. Sun is a visible representative of the divine, because there will be no photosynthesis. You won't even get vegetables to eat without the sun. So that's okay. I said, if you don't want to, do it in a closed room. And then I told him, if you go to a doctor and he says you have a heart problem, and one of the things you should do is perform Surya Namaskara half an hour every day, would you do it or would you die? So please get out of this mindset. It's nothing to do with it. So that's why I'm telling you, please chant Om. Don't think this is not Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Muslim. It's a sound. Understand what I'm trying to say? And when you say Om, don't keep shouting like that. It sounds like somebody's hurt. Just shut it somewhere and then go to Oo and Ma.
So I'm from Toronto myself, and reading your book, it made me very, very nostalgic. The description of the streets, and I've been through many of those myself, so it is very nostalgic. My question to you is, you briefly mentioned that at some point you were able to connect with your consciousness, and after that, things dramatically changed, and it could never be the same again. Could you explain what that is, or in a way we can understand that?
First of all, since you said you are from, where in Trivandrum are you from?
From Karamana.
Huh?
From Karamana.
Karamana. Okay. And what's your name?
Kishore.
Somebody who lives close to Karamana here. Anyway, when I said in my book that I had a certain spiritual experience after which life was not the same anymore, that's something like that, what I said. It's a deep experience I had when I was with my master in the Himalayas, when I suddenly discovered that the consciousness is not confined to just one little point, but it's all pervading. It works through different centers, but it's not really belonging to you or to me, it's for everyone. Not as a theory, but as an experience. If you think if this is possible, I would like to refer you to a parallel case, which is not of a meditator, but of someone who had a brain hemorrhage. I'm just saying, because how can this be possible that we feel that you are there and here at the same time? This is not possible, but it is possible. And here I refer you to a book by Jill Bors called My Stroke of Insight. She was I think she was a doctor or a pathologist or something of that kind. And she had a stroke. With the stroke, what happened was the left side of her brain was totally paralyzed and only the right side was working. You know, we have a left brain and a right brain. And when only the left brain is the one that calculates and says, oh, when you say your consciousness is confined to this limit only, not here. I'd be mad if I said, this is M. Normally, in this lady's case, the calculating brain, which decides your space and time dimensions, which is the left, was kind of completely paralyzed. She recovered enough to write about it, of course, later. And her right brain was fully awake, still working. That's when, according to her, she figured out that when she was in the room and there were these birds outside and the breeze blowing and the leaves shaking, it was not as if the leaves were moving, she was moving. It was not as if the birds were singing, she was singing. She was not singing, but she was singing. And you get what I'm trying to say? So if this can even be, I'm not saying we should all have a brain hemorrhage to experience this. I'm saying that there are ways and means in yoga by which this can be brought about without a hemorrhage. So after that, once you feel that, then you cannot be the same. Your life changes. You can't be the same. I think that's self-evident.
Maybe one more question.
Only one.
My name is Vivek. Vivek, thank you for coming to
Sir,
Google
what's
again.
your name?
Vivek Rao.
Vivek.
My sister was on the walk with you. Her name is Sunila.
Oh, Sunita. Okay. We have a big joke, that when we entered Nasik, from somewhere a monkey came down and bit her.
Oh.
Yeah. So, nothing happened. We gave her some injections. She was fine. Yeah. But I have this joke. Every time I see her, I say, watch out. Okay.
So I have a question about Advaita and non-duality, which I've been thinking about for a long time. So if we are really not separate, if there is only one thing, then how do we reconcile that with karma and reincarnation? What is the entity that is reborn? What is the entity to which karma attaches if there is no separation?
As long as there is an ignorance of this understanding and experience, then all these things are very real. There is an entity separate, there is a reincarnation, everything is going on. The moment it is actually understood and experienced that there is only one, then there is no reincarnation, there is no nothing. It's the mind that decides on this. Right now we are living in this dream, and if anybody says this is a dream, we won't believe it. Because in the dream, normal dream, when we are chased by a tiger, do we say this is a dream or do we run for our lives? I'm just giving you an example. Our examples are not perfect. And when I come out of the dream, I say, this was a great dream. I may still be sweating and palpitating, but I say, oh, this was a dream. So, according to the theory of Vedanta, when the truth is understood, then all these things do not exist. I mean, they exist, but you are not part of it. As long as that is not understood, you are still in this circuit, coming, going, separate feeling. I am different, you are different. Look, Shankara is the well-known interpreter of Vedanta, Advaita philosophy. And even after that, I think he fully believed that one can be reborn, come, go, everything, even after having that experience. So which means that at one stage it is real, in another stage it is not. From the ultimate point, there is no such thing. Sir. Okay, one more.
Then why do we have this separation? Why are we not
I
born?
thought he was going to ask that question.
Yeah, I thought he was going to ask that question. Why are we not born with
We don't know. But it is so. There are many things which we don't know, but it happens to be so. And now, since it happens to be so, how do we get out of it? That should be the question. Why, in the first place, it became like that? We have no explanation for many things in the universe that way. Perhaps we may discover at some point. If I may say so, all people who have discovered the why, if anybody has not been able to explain it to somebody who has not touched it. You understand what I'm trying to say? You cannot explain it. It's not possible. That doesn't mean that you have not found it. There are many things which language and our thought process cannot define and catch. Those things, it is better to leave it like that. But the actual fact is that we are suffering. We need to get out of it somehow. Perhaps when we get out, we find the source and why it has happened. I'll give you a small story before we wind up. This was Buddha's very popular story. And somebody asked him about the same thing in a different way. Where did the first karma start? Why are we going on and on? He said, listen, you have gone into a garden to eat fruits. Somebody shoots an arrow at you. The arrow is stuck in your chest. There is pain. And you might die soon if you don't pull it out and do something about it. So the Buddha's question was, lying down there in pain with the arrow in your chest, what would you do first? Would you try to pull it out and free yourself and then figure out where it came from? Or would you lie down there and say, who sent this arrow? Where has it come from? How do I find the source? You see? So in this urgency of pain, you need to get out. Perhaps when you get out, you might be able to go out and see who has sent this arrow. And it may be so that you may not be able to explain it to the other guy who's still lying down with the arrow in his heart. But I'm just trying to give you a theoretical question, answer to a theoretical question. But it comes from my understanding. Yeah? What's your name?
Raj.
Raj. Thank you very much. I think now...
Can I ask one last question? Now that you told us, like, pull the arrow out, how do you do it? So just
First, are we aware that the arrow is there? Yes. First step is that. That I feel there is pain. There is an arrow stuck. Understand this fully first. If you understand this fully, then you'll find ways to take it out. Many people have the arrow, but they eat lollipops and think that it's okay. The seriousness of trying to get out of it comes when you really understand that it is so, first. Self-realization does not mean to say that I am the Supreme Brahman, I am not this body. That's not self-real. Self-realization means to find out where I stand at the moment. What is life to me? Who am I in this context, not that context? When these things are clear, you'll suddenly see a small little path going to separate it. But it must be urgent. And I really have to get out. Till that thing comes, whatever, if I tell you the path, it's not going to work. I hope you understood what I'm trying. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, PM, very much.